Hello, I'm just going to do a mic check here. Okay, that sounds good. Sounds reasonable. So let me get into it. Okay. Okay, levels are fine. Okay, so we'll just get right into it. This is going to be kind of a grab bag. I'm going to talk about this new smart telescope that I found out about and why I'm probably not going to get it yet. A word about transits, space station transits of the sun and moon that came up recently in the comments, and a little bit more eclipse related discussion. I'll probably do another full length video at some point on some eclipse related topic, but this is a good venue to kind of discuss things that come up or things that I haven't had time to make a full video about. So let's dig into it. So the smart telescope, I got an email from one of the astronomy, one of the companies that sell telescopes and such, and about pre-ordering a new smart telescope that had come out from Celestron, and it's interesting. It's the it's a Celestron smart telescope, and Celestron's a major maker of telescopes. It's called the Origin, and they title it the Intelligent Home Observatory, which sounds a little, I won't say pretentious, but a little bit kind of, it sounds like a big claim, but it has some pretty decent specs. Whereas something like the Sea Star here, which I just have right here, the Sea Star, is a approximately 2-inch telescope. The new Celestron Origin is a 6-inch telescope, a 6-inch reflector. It's a RASA reflector, which is a let me switch to the screen sharing here. Oh, I've got 2 monitors here, and it's just, I'm making my life more complicated. So you can see, well, this is my website, but it's a Rowe Ackermann Schmidt astrograph is what RASA stands for. It's it's of the same family of telescope designs that Celestron is kind of famous for, the Schmidt Cassegrain telescope. And there's a bunch of different variations. Like in the past, I remember seeing Schmidt cameras was they were photography only telescope design, and the RASA is a really nice, fast design. I've never personally used one, but it's certainly kind of on my unwritten wish list of a telescope to get. So this let's switch to the this new this is a video from High Point Scientific where they kind of introduce it. And let's see how this, yeah, so this is what it looks like. I'll go look at the website in a little bit, but you can see it's a reflector. So the Sea Star is approximately 2-inch refractor. The RASA is a 6-inch reflector, which and and here's the punchline. It's available for pre-order for a rather eye-watering $4,000, which is 8 times the cost of the Sea Star. But for the money, you get 3 times the aperture, which theoretically, all things being, if it, which theoretically could be 9 times the light gathering, but in practice, you have this central obstruction. You can see right here where the camera is, and that's part of that specific telescope design, it's got that central obstruction. So in practice, it's not going to be 9 times, but it's still a lot more light gathering. Plus, it comes with a higher megapixel camera. The C-Star, I think, is like about 2 megapixel, whereas this comes with a 6 megapixel sensor. And as you can see on going back to this design here, it actually can be unscrewed, the camera. So potentially they could have an upgrade in the future. They haven't, of course, announced it. The telescope's not even out yet. It's supposed to be available for shipment late March, early April. But still, that could be, add some value as far as like you can upgrade it as cameras get better. It has a Raspberry Pi, which is similar to which is a little embedded computer that runs the software that controls it and does the exposure stacking. That's the same kind of computer that's used. Here's the computer. The same kind of computer that's used in the ASI Air, which is a little dedicated astronomy box. And I wouldn't be surprised if something similar to that is what runs in the C-Star. Maybe not a Raspberry Pi, but it's not a surprising choice, honestly. And as you can see, this is what it looks like. It comes with software that runs on the phone, and yeah, so it's a very similar kind of thing where you can you can control it from your phone, tell it what to point at, and start taking photos of it. And if we look at the High Points Scientific, their website here, and you can see the information. I'll include all the links in the description, but the focus motors in the back, it moves the primary mirror. And here's a result of a photo that was taken with the Origin. And it kind of does a similar thing to what the C-Stars do, where it has kind of not a watermark, but it kind of shows what the target was. In this case, IC 434, which is also known as the Horsehead Nebula. You can kind of see the Horsehead, and it's an Orion. It's a pretty nice and relatively straightforward target. But this is a nice result. It like the C-Star, it takes multiple short exposures. So it took 60 15-second exposures. And I assume it's like all the other smart telescopes where it's doing that, the telescope itself. So you basically point it at what you want, start the process going, and it takes and stacks the photos. And that's a nice result here. And yeah, so you can see it has an onboard Raspberry Pi. It stacks and preprocesses the frames automatically. It has a passive cooling fan to kind of, I guess, keep it from overheating. Not necessarily a problem in the winter, but in the summer, I imagine it's more of an issue. And what else? I need to do something real quick here. I forgot to turn on Do Not Disturb, and I don't want to be any more disturbed than I already am. 2-minute alignment, so it's got the same quick setup. You just basically set it up, put it outside, and oh yeah, nice. You can display to your TV, so you can be sitting inside the comfort of your home while taking photos of different things. So yeah, it looks really interesting. Now, one thing I noticed is it doesn't let me see. Yeah, it doesn't look like it comes with the filters. For example, the C-Star comes with a solar filter and a light pollution filter. It seems like this doesn't come with it out of the box, but you can add them because it uses standard or it has like a filter drawer or something, I think, where you can add filters. So yeah, it's out of the box. It's mostly what you would need. Maybe you need to add a filter if you're, unless you're in a dark sky area. But if you're in a city, you would definitely need to add a filter. But it's a pretty interesting package. It's very intriguing. I probably won't be getting one, probably mostly because of the, not just the fact that it's $4,000, although that's certainly a big factor. It's that where I am in the city, although the extra aperture would be really nice, it's it it's nice, the aperture, but I feel like I wouldn't be really taking full advantage of the capabilities of it, and so I think that's where I would be hesitant to get it. Um, but that said, if somebody were to send me one, I wouldn't turn it down. Uh, but but yeah, it looks really neat, and it'll be interesting to see the reviews of these once people start getting their hands on them. Um, what else? So the next topic is I just wanted to briefly mention the video, or I had done a video about, and I'd mentioned it in a previous live stream about the internet capturing the International Space Station crossing the sun, and it's I used a website, and so that was one of the questions about it. It's called transit-finder.com, and I'll include a link in the description. But you basically just bring it up, and you pick a latitude, longitude, or you can auto detect, and by default it goes out like it shows like 3 weeks, and you can tell how many kilometers it is, and you can also have it tell you if there's to look for transits for the Hubble telescope and the Chinese space station. So you just click it, and it shows you where, upcoming transits. So you can see there's several of them here of Hubble. The problem is the International Space Station is probably the largest thing in orbit, so it makes a better target on the sun. As it is, if you saw that video, it's really small on the sun. So Hubble and the would be even smaller. And it only takes like 2 seconds to cross. So you have to be, basically that's why I did a video, because you have to be capturing it as it's happening. And you can you can look at all the paths overlaid as a map, or you can pick just a specific one. And yeah, so it's a very handy resource. The one thing I hadn't considered is I live in Texas, and we're pretty far south for the United States, and definitely compared to Europe. And I hadn't considered that the International Space Station there's a limit on how far north you can see it because of the orbital inclination. Basically, the if the orbital inclination was zero, it would be orbiting over the equator, and so you would only see it. It would be directly overhead at the equator, and the angle where it would cross the sun would vary depending on the time of the year. But if you're too far north, the space station's orbit is south of where you are, so you would not be able to see it necessarily. And I wasn't clear on what the orbital inclination of the space station, the International Space Station, the Chinese Space Station, or Hubble. But I looked into it briefly, and actually, International Space Station is the one that has the highest orbital inclination, so it covers more of North and South America. But it's something to keep in mind. So like if you're depending on how far north you are in Europe, it might be a problem. But it's worth the check though in the website. I mean, it picks your location, and if nothing's visible, it'll tell you. But as you can see from my location, there's a lot of transits over the next three weeks or so. That said, once it's dates beyond like a couple weeks out aren't as accurate because there's a limit on the precision, and they do orbital corrections and stuff. So the orbit could shift a little bit. And so the path would shift a little bit. So it's also something to keep in mind. Don't make plans for something a month out. Like, I'm going to be at this point, because there's a good chance it's going to shift. So then the last topic I wanted to go over was related to an update, just more in discussion about the eclipse. As I've said more than once, if you don't have solar glasses, get them. They'll probably get more expensive as it gets closer to the eclipse. And so, so get them now if you don't have something. Now, someone made a comment about welding goggles, and I think I had mentioned it at some point, but I was hesitant to recommend them because I hadn't really looked into it in a while. But I did go ahead and look into it, and I knew that welding goggles were good at blocking UV because the welding arc emits a lot of UV. But I still was kind of hesitant because, like, is it blocking enough? Is it blocking infrared? Well, I found an article that claimed that, according to NASA, they said, but this one article claimed that number 12 welding goggles, which is the darkness, and I guess it goes up to 13. 13, they said, was too dark. 11 was too light, but 12 was just right. That number 12 goggles, less than 3 years old, were safe. I'm not recommending that, but that's what I saw. If I can find the link again, I'll add it to the description so you can look for yourself. But that would be good if you have welding goggles, or if you're either a professional or hobbyist, or have a friend who has welding goggles, but they have to be the right darkness to block enough UV and infrared. Probably more UV and visible, actually, for that matter. It's actually probably more visible because the UV is probably covered. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of talk about the eclipse and the path and the weather. And I'd kind of alluded to it. Let me just check something right here. Oh, hey, somebody gave me a thumbs up. Thank you. So yeah, the eclipse and the path. And I was thinking about that some more. And let me switch to the view here. Hold on. Let me move this window. Okay, great. So you can see the path of this is that the NASA website that I linked to before, and you can kind of see the path, and the central, kind of like the inner area, is the area you would ideally want to be. And it starts at Eagle Pass, Texas. That's the first area that it enters Texas. The path, it had been crossing Mexico at that point. Oh yeah, so you can see the bands. The inner band is 4 minutes. This other band is 3 minutes, and that's the duration of totality, which is ideally you want to be as nearer to the center line, because you would probably want it to be over 4 minutes. Now, that said, the peak, or the duration of the eclipse in 2017 was only 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. So, even 3 minutes is better than 2017, but 4 minutes is better. Like, the time goes by very quickly. But if you look, it just kind of narrowly misses San Antonio, but like some of the west side of of San Antonio and some towns, like probably Kerrville and some other towns here to the west, northwest of San Antonio would be within the path. Austin kind of just narrowly has an eclipse, but the Round Rock looks to be around the 3 minute duration, and some areas kind of north and west. And I think this is Fredericksburg. Killeen is right in the middle of it. Waco is within that 4 minute band. Dallas Fort Worth, the eastern part of the city, and Arlington, those areas were within 3 minute kind of duration. And then it goes near Texarkana right here. So that's, a couple minutes, goes through Little Rock, Hot Springs, near Hot Springs. Well, it kind of, so there's a lot, the nice thing is there's a lot of cities that are on the path or near the path. So even if you need to travel and you don't have accommodations and can't get them, you might, if you have friends or family who are in some of these towns, it might be a good jumping off point. It's all about improvising. If you're extremely motivated to see totality. But yeah, going into Carbondale, Illinois is right on the middle, or almost right on the middle. Evansville is kind of towards the edge. Bloomington is right on it. Indianapolis, that's pretty cool. Indianapolis is within the band. And then we start getting Toledo, Akron, over Lake Erie, Niagara Falls. That would be interesting. I guess I think I had seen that Niagara Falls would be over it. If it's clear, that could result in some really awesome photos if you're in that area anyway. Although I imagine it's going to be it might be chaotic. I wouldn't be surprised. Buffalo's right in the middle. That's going to be great. And yeah, so like at this point, you're getting Burlington, Vermont, and you're kind of almost out of the U.S. And but yeah, if you kind of look at places that are nearby, yeah, it's kind of inland from like New York City and Boston, Philadelphia, but probably, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how the traffic is. But yeah, so that's kind of the path, and it continues on over Newfoundland, I believe. But the path is all well and good, but there's, the weather is, as I mentioned in the video I did about the eclipse, the weather is the big thing. And of the 3 total solar eclipses I've seen, it was a big factor every time. I was lucky and I was able to get in a clear area, but in 2 of the cases, my plan A location was clouded out. And the problem is you don't know until a few days out that if the weather's going to be bad or what the weather is even going to roughly look like. And so, yeah, in the case of 2017, we basically just headed north because we weren't anywhere near the center line. So it kind of went the opposite way across the U.S. It kind of went from the northwest, from Oregon through Wyoming. It went through Missouri and kind of to the east, southeast. And originally the closest thing for me was Missouri, and I was hoping to go to like St. Louis because I believe the path went right over St. Louis. But it was showing rain, and so we ended up kind of driving farther, and I figured the odds would be good in Wyoming. And that's where we ended up seeing it, in Casper, Wyoming, which was really awesome. It was really nice. The air, it was also, even though it was in August, the temperatures were nice in Wyoming. But flexibility is kind of the name of the game. But if you're, like I say, if you're like motivated, extremely motivated to see totality, But then things happen. I remember in 1991, uh, solar eclipse went over Hawaii, and it went to the west coast of Mexico and across Mexico. And there were people who booked booked expensive vacations because the hotels had kind of been filling up in Hawaii, and they flew to Hawaii, and it ended up raining, I think, in Honolulu the day of the eclipse. And I read an account from someone who said they were hiking up like Mauna Kea or Mauna Loa. I always forget. I always mix those up. And it was cloudy, and they figured it was starting to get dark, but not like totality dark, but they could tell it was getting dark, but they were afraid they were going to miss it. And because when when an eclipse happens, one of the things that happens is the temperatures go down. It gets cooler because there's less sunlight hitting the earth in that area. And so it starts getting cooler. And this person, they were on the mountain, like up a couple of miles, or at least a mile up the mountain. And since it started getting cooler during the eclipse, the cloud deck dropped below them just in time for totality. So they saw totality, and then the cloud deck went above it. But like the people who had spent thousands of dollars, and this is back 30 years ago, to have a vacation in Hawaii, in Honolulu, they didn't see anything. Now they did get a nice vacation in Hawaii, but missed on the eclipse. So you just never know. It's just kind of luck of the draw. I've talked to other people who ended up getting clouded out, and they had flown to some very remote areas. The good thing is, since this covers so much of North America, potentially you could travel. But as far as the specifics go, the National Weather Service, I'll post a link. I'll add a link to the description about this. They actually have there's several websites that discuss this, but the National Weather Service actually has a page about the climatology and where good odds are to actually see, where you actually have good odds that it'll be clear that day. And so that's kind of interesting. So I'll include a link to that in the description. And there's some other websites where they discuss the best places to see it based on historical weather data. Like there's some people who are really like deep diving into this, but it makes sense because it's an event that happens very infrequently at a given place, at a given location on Earth, or even kind of general area. I want to say it's like 20 more years or more, 20 or 30 more years before the next total solar eclipse crosses somewhere in the United States in the lower 48. But so it's not that common. And so it's maybe worth doing a little bit of research or having plans, maybe having a plan A and a plan B. I know I'm trying to kind of formulate my own plan. Ideally it'll be clear, in that kind of San Antonio to Dallas corridor, and which are a fairly short by Texas standard drive for me. But if not, I've got, contingencies. Like in 2017, I ended up driving 1,000 miles each way to get to the center line. And then it gets to the point where once you've kind of committed to it and you've already started driving and you've gone hundreds of miles, it's kind of like hard to say, oh no, I'm gonna bail on this. It's kind of the whole sunk cost thing. So yeah, that's it for now. I think, I will be, doing another video on some more videos on the eclipse. And yeah, that's, so keep an eye out for those. And what else? I think that's it. So with that, have a good afternoon or evening or whenever you're watching this. And I will See you next time. Bye.